Thank you so much. Do you want to have your coat on?
Okay.
How was the concert in Kuopio?
It was a wonderful concert last night. The hall was full and a very attentive and enthusiastic public. It's not my first visit to Kuopio, and I've had a really connection with the public there. So I hope this is going to be a regular stop when I come to Finland to go to Kuopio, because I always have really wonderful communication. You know, a concert it's two elements, but we're sort of interacting the whole time. So I need the public to feel them listening to the music. It gives me energy, and so I had a very good time last night.
You just performed in Brazil. It must be quite a different atmosphere to sing in Sao Paulo than to sing in Kuopio.
Well, the Brazilians, of course, are temperamentally very different from the Finns. But I think in the concert, it was a different program. It was a program of chamber music with Shostakovich. It was piano trio, and it was Shostakovich, Beethoven, and Schubert. And so it was a different program, but the audience was also listening in a very good way. Except, of course, they're more demonstrative than a Finnish audience. But then you don't have carnival here either in February.
From music to world politics, in March, your foundation supported an award for human rights defenders. You were in Geneva with Mr. Sergio Vieira de Mello. After 4.5 years, half months, Mr. Vieira de Mello was killed in an attack in Iraq. That must have been quite a shock to you.
Sergio was not only a personal friend, he was really one of the best people that the United Nations had to offer. And it was a shock, sadness. I'm still very sad from it, but I was also very angry because, like Sergio, I believe very strongly that we need the United Nations, we need nations working together to help us solve the big problems that confront us in the world. And that the lead up to the Iraqi war was really a demonstration. We're at the airport.
Yes.
I was because the lead up to the war in Iraq was really a demonstration of the lack of respect for the organization, and then for us to lose not only Sergio but 21 other best people, the people who were the first ones to say yes when they were asked if they will go into an area of danger and high risk. So I think that if Sergio's death and the death of his other colleagues are to give us any hope, it would be that there will be reform in the United Nations based on this tragedy, so that we will be able to not only change the way we make decisions in the UN through the Security Council. I personally think that the veto in the Security Council is highly undemocratic and should be stopped, but that the Security Council definitely needs to be reformed, as the Secretary General has stated, although he and I don't have exactly the same ideas about how it should be done. But that we must be able to ensure the safety of not only UN workers, but humanitarian workers all over the world.
And in Sweden, not even a month ago, a young man killed Anna Lindh. Another shock in the middle of a bright day.
It was a great shock to all of us. I was not in Sweden at the time, and it was just unbelievable because Sweden, like Finland, is sort of one of those places when the world gets to be too much. You think at least I can sort of hide away here a little while until things calm down, and then it's sort of the violence came right into our living rooms, right onto our front doorstep, because I mean that department store is a place where it's the center of downtown Stockholm, and it's a place that I go in and out of all the time. Yes, and I think it's also shows us too that you can't hide, that we must participate, we must be a part of the solutions to the problems in our society. And I understand that they must feel great sometimes and so untouchable, because even I have that feeling sometimes. But I think that when things are going down and when you're feeling down, that the advantage of that is that the way out is up. And I'm really hoping that out of the tragedy of the war in Iraq, the many situations in the world and in Africa, the conflicts in Africa, but particularly the Middle East conflict, the bombing in Baghdad, the continuous suffering in Baghdad by the civilians. You know, there have been nearly 10,000 civilians and soldiers killed since the beginning of the war. So the suffering is continuing. But I mean, as I'm optimistic by nature, I feel that I hope we're near the bottom, which means that we're on our way up, that we will find a way through the United Nations, but also through other regional organizations such as Europe, that Europe will have a common and strong voice in world affairs, that we will find a way to make the world a slightly better place for our children to inherit.
You are a very famous person. Are you afraid of such attacks?
No, I'm not really afraid. I'm not a threat to anyone. I'm not a politician, but it is frightening. Yes, it is frightening when it's sort of an anonymous attack, sort of gratuitous attack on such a person as Anna Lindh. But you know, I think there are violent attacks that are happening to nameless people all the time, and they're no less important for us to deal with. I mean, we have to deal with the violence in our society. Is it because we're not doing enough? Is it because we're not willing to pay enough for education? We're not willing to pay enough for mental health? That we're cutting back on the essentials in our society? I think we need to deal with the everyday violence, not just of people that are well known, but you know, the violence that women have to deal with all the time in Sweden, in Finland, and all over the world. And so I think we need to deal with that violence that is in our society, in ourselves.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great.
We are, what day today?
It's
Fourth.
fourth. Yeah. Great pleasure. And powerful words. You said about nameless.
Yes, I mean,
Normally we only think about celebrities.
Yes, but
yeah.
I think the women being attacked on the streets of Stockholm.
Yes. That's true.
But the violence, I mean, we don't know yet if he's mentally ill or
Yes.